Welcome to Housing Developments.
I'm Jim Tobin.
And I'm Paul Lopez.
Paul, good afternoon.
Howdy, sir. How you doing?
Doing great. Good to be in the studio again.
In the warmth?
In the warmth, yeah. Finally, November's here, as is fall is finally hit the nation's capital after a pretty nice early fall, I guess we would call it.
Yeah, Monday was like 78,
Yeah,
and today we're going to be lucky if we hit the 50s.
Yeah, it's but that's okay. That's it's my favorite time of year. My birthday's coming up. I like a good fall bleak November day. No leaves on the trees, dark skies. It's totally my kind of town.
Do we need to analyze why you want to have a
Yeah,
bleak
we should
birthday?
if we should bring a couch in here anyway for general purposes. Speaking of couches, maybe we need to want to talk about what the Fed's been up to.
Yeah, it's some pretty good news.
Yep.
Expected, but always nice to
That's
have
right.
it official,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So they kept the rates flat, exactly where they were last month,
Right.
Just like everybody thought.
Right.
But thankfully, the language seems a little bit more like, okay, they're seeing exactly what they want to be seeing right now, right?
Yeah, hopefully that we've suspected they're at the end of the tightening phase. The question is the end of the tightening phase? The economy still seems to be resilient, the overall economy. I think they acknowledge that in the statement. But they also talk about the crunch that consumers are facing when it comes to either financial or credit-wise, which makes sense because if anybody's affected by credit and financial crunches, it's our industry. Yeah. And so that leads me to believe that they're tightening, and then, of course, the run-up in the fixed rate 30-year fixed rate mortgage is probably helping them in their goal to really kind of tamp down demand. Yeah,
no, 100%. So, but we've been heavy on the econ front, the last couple of weeks, which it clearly needs to be done.
Right.
I'm not. But let's talk a little bit now about what's happening in Washington. We've got a new speaker.
Speaker, Michael Johnson from Louisiana. Yeah, kind of the I don't even know how you describe it. Just kind of a dark horse candidate. No one was talking about him at all, and he just kind of. I think the fatigue up there was pretty high, and I think they found somebody that somehow they could all live with. Either that or someone they could all just swallow and get through, because it was getting to be kind of a clown show up there for a while.
Because it's a little weird, right? Because you had the moderate Republicans who were basically pushing people around.
Right.
But then unanimously on the Republican side voted for Johnson. A little weird?
Yeah, considering that if you look at the dynamics of what kicked McCarthy out, it makes you really realize this was personal. Yeah. Matt Gaetz and some of those other folks who may have begrudgingly got out of the way after the 14th vote into the 15th vote for McCarthy, they were just laying in the grass, biding their time to pick the moment where they could kick him out. And interestingly, some of the same bills that McCarthy was trying to pass that the 8 or 10 conservatives refused to vote for, which then forced McCarthy's hand on a CR to keep the government open. Speaker Johnson is going to have to do and is doing the same thing, and they're all voting in lockstep now, which I think is a pretty sad commentary on that interpersonal grudges essentially took down a chamber of one of the branches of government for almost a month. Yeah. And number two, just made the party look silly. And I've been saying, I don't care which party you're for. Yeah. You want to believe that they can govern, and you got to really question about whether this Republican majority can truly govern. Which, when we're only a year out from the general election, is the American electorate going to give the Republican House majority the keys again? Yeah, they kind of dropped him down the sewer drain. They may have found him with a long stick and a piece of chewing gum. Right. But are they going to give him to him again? And so I've been saying this for a couple weeks. It's a real unforced error in my mind. Yeah. But congratulations to Speaker Johnson. Look forward to working with him. Our Louisiana members, a great relationship with him. Yeah. Certainly somebody we can work with. He, of course, has to work with his own conference, and that's why we continue to have some of these appropriations fights, whether Job Corps in particular, and the House cut of that elimination of that program. So we continue to fight the fights, but they are cranking out some bills again and some wins for us.
Yeah, but he's going to be handcuffed just like McCarthy was in regards.
He's got
to
a 4-seat majority.
Right?
Yeah, same thing.
But like you said, we are seeing some action in particular, like 3 areas, right, that are effectively critical to our members, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about WOTUS.
Sure. Yeah. So the Energy and Water Appropriations Bill, we have a chance to play an appropriations bill. The one thing Congress has to do every year is pass a government funding bill, presumably. But in this case, we were able to use that particular piece of legislation to drive some policy victories. The first one you mentioned, WOTUS. We actually have a rider in there that would defund or not allow any of the appropriated monies, if this bill becomes law, from being used to implement the new Biden WOTUS rule. So, big win for us.
Yeah. Energy codes is always kind of a big thing.
Yeah,
that's in there too, right?
The Inflation Reduction Act, $1 billion program for a bribe for states to update their energy codes to the 2021 code. Again, we're going to defund the ability of the Department of Energy to actually hand those grants out.
Oh, nice. And then the weird one, right? The Transformers more than meets
well,
the eye. But
right. Well, thank you, Optimus. Well, that one in particular, that's the one issue in the supply chain we hear the most about from our members. Still hard to get transformers, distributional transformers to the job site. But in the midst of all this shortage, we have an administration that it has a proposed rule to increase the efficiency of transformers. Now, I know what you're thinking.
It's crazy.
I know what you're thinking. Well, electrical transformer, big box, it hums, keeps your lights on. It should probably something that should be efficient, right? Well, did you know this? That electrical transformers today are 99.5% efficient.
And what did they want to increase that to?
I think it's like 99.9, or I mean, we're trying. This is a classic example of trying to squeeze a little too much out of the stone for the cost. And people ask, well, who cares, right? We'll let them do that. The reality is that the producers of transformers who can't keep up with the supply chain now
currently,
if this rule goes into effect, even if it's a couple years out, and that's what it would be, 2 or 3 years in the future, they're going to start retooling their lines now,
right?
Which means they can't meet demand already. Now they're going to be in further delays. It's an unnecessary move to increase an already pretty darn efficient component for a house. So again, we're going to defund that. The appropriations bill is going to make sure that DOE doesn't have any funds to move forward on that new rule.
No, that's awesome. Those are good ones for us. So kudos to our ledge team as always.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that the government is back in play, and they're actually working, we've got still a time bomb in our hand, right? We've only got a couple of weeks before.
Yeah, November 17th. Today's the 1st. We got 16 days before the government shuts down again.
Right.
But I imagine that they'll move some of these appropriations bills. There's still 4 or 5 left, I think, is the number to get through the House. And that is hopeful. The Speaker has already said that he's hoping that by passing these will buy him time to enter into another negotiation on a CR. Maybe he gets a little bit more concession from the administration. My guess is, he's still got a Democratic Senate, still has a Democratic White House. We're probably we're going to punt government funding until we get into, closer to the holidays, and jet fumes and holidays always make people come to deals a lot faster. But who knows? I still see a likelihood that, again, with that 4-seat majority, if he can't move whatever compromise he comes up with, we could see this punted into the new year again. But as long as the government doesn't shut down, flood insurance doesn't lapse, it is what it is. It's not the way to run a country, but there's, as long as our priorities are staying in the mix. So.
Is there anything on the Senate side that concerns you? Is there anything that we should be looking at moving ahead?
No, I think from our perspective, the Senate the Senate has fully funded the Job Corps program, which is really important. But the Senate's also not going to put any of these riders we just talked about either. And they talk about a clean CR or clean appropriations bill. That means they get rid of all the riders. And so while this is a good victory in the short term, we're going to have to work really hard to try to keep those into the final package, if that's what it looks like. So job isn't over on both fronts. We got we're pushing and pulling on the appropriations bills as we go.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So let me put you a little bit on the spot. You're the CEO of the National Association of Home Builders.
So they say.
The end of the year is coming. In your mind, let's start. What keeps you legislatively, kind of like issues based? What are the things that I don't think necessarily keeps you up at night, but what are the things that are on top of your mind?
Yeah, I think there's 3 things. One is what's the outcome of the foreign aid package that everybody wants, whether it's to help Israel and end that war in the Middle East, or whether it's Ukraine funding in their war against Russia. That's going to play a large role over certainly between now and the first CR, but at the end of the year, what does that package look like?
Because that can blot the sun, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, everyone wants to help everybody, but no one wants to pay for it, and so that's one, because that will dictate what we move on the next one.
Right.
Then it's the appropriations bills. We have got to make sure the government stays funded, number one. Number two, flood insurance. And number three, we want to restore Job Corps. And I won't take those in any particular order, but that's the next thing. And then the last piece, there's a rumor about a tax package coming together. And why is that important? Well, there's a lot of things in play for us when it comes to housing. In particular, the Affordable Tax Credit Act is a way to reemphasize and reinfuse the low-income housing tax credit with more credits, more flexibility, and really, really lean into building more affordable rental housing for a program that's been legendary in its ability to do that. So for us, if a tax package does come together, we know that on there's a lot of bipartisan support for that Affordable Housing Tax Credit Act in order to bring those units to bear. So we could have a busy, November now, but December. So those are the three things I'm looking for. But again, Ukraine, the foreign aid leads to an appropriations deal, and then everybody's feeling good about each other. Then can they get a tax deal? Yeah. And there's a lot of moving parts to that too. But those are the three things that I'm looking for from a Hill perspective at the end of the year.
Okay, so then let's talk about the final branch of the government, the White House. They keep pushing, that they have this focus on housing affordability.
Yep,
I get that, but it seems very myopic,
right?
In my view,
right.
In terms of, for them, it's manufactured homes and kind of a very slotted way of viewing the problem.
Right.
What do you see? Any kind of movement there?
Yeah, we were actually, Jessica Lynch and Rob Dietz and I went over to the White House last week and had a great conversation with the team over there. Yeah. Just touching base, we do that every quarter or so. And we raised a lot of these issues, raise transformers, something that they can look at. We talked a lot about the Affordable Housing Tax Credit Act, and really if there's a tax bill, how we work. So there's a lot of common ground. But then we also talked energy codes and, FHA and FHFA, they're all, meaning Fannie and Freddie, they're all looking at how do they use their programs to get jurisdictions to move up to the 21 code. Right. I got some real issues about whether or not Fannie and Freddie and FHFA, it should be safety and soundness for the housing market, should be worried about energy codes.
Right.
But FHA, they are actually legally mandated by law to look at updating their energy codes requirements, and they want to go to the 21 code. We think that's a big leap and too much, considering that most jurisdictions aren't even close to the 21 code. So again, one of those areas where the White House says, but wouldn't that be good for energy efficiency and people could save money on their monthly bills? And we say, but who's going to inspect those homes and who's going to build to a code that they don't have? In which case, is anybody going to be able to use FHA financing if you go that far? So those are part of those unforced errors. But again, having a conversation and outlining our positions are really, really important in this phase, and pointing out where we think they're overregulating, and reminding them that housing's in a really tough spot, especially with interest rates. And if this administration is obviously interested in getting reelected next year, and then growing into the next 4 years, it's really important for them to recognize that they bear responsibility for the regulatory burden that's placed on housing and our homeowners and renters.
Are you optimistic?
No-ish. Yeah, no, I think I've been saying this from day one. The Biden administration is focused on economic and social opportunities for all people. They're focused on climate change. And when it comes to the climate change agenda, we're trying to get them to understand, if you want to satisfy your pillar for economic prosperity for everybody and opportunity, housing is the best way to do that. Don't hamstring you by your climate change agenda, and that they haven't really made that connection as well as we have.
Oh, interesting. All right. Well.
So yeah. I mean, this is the regulatory environment that we knew we were going to get with this administration. So no surprises, and so we're just going to keep putting our best foot forward and making really compelling cases and find every avenue, whether it's on Capitol Hill or inside the administration, to do that.
Well, it looks like the next few weeks are going to be very telling. I mean, especially the November 17th date. But you feel good about that?
I do. I think everything's kind of calmed down. Now they have a speaker that he's indicated on day one. We're gonna find a way to keep the government open. So whether he can extract something that gives everybody a little bit of comfort, or they'll just do it with Democrats again, and it's
all right.
Yeah, it's nothing's easy.
Yeah, no, right. All right. Well, I guess to be continued.
To be continued. Yeah.
I think that's it for this week.
Yeah, that's it for this week. So
all right.
Until next.
All right, man.
All right.
This is Paul.
And I'm Jim. See you next time.